A night like any other Chicago nights had a special kind of silence, the kind that settles over a city when the business people go home and the streets belong to those who work while others sleep. Jade Monroe pushed her cleaning cart down the marble hallway of Blake Industries Tower, her rubber-soled shoes making soft squeaking sounds against the polished floor. At 23 years old, she had perfected the art of being invisible. She wore the standard gray uniform that every night janitor wore. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her hands, already rough from years of scrubbing and cleaning, moved with practiced efficiency. This was her life now. Working the night shift, cleaning up after people who would never notice her, saving every dollar she could. The tower stretched 45 floors into the Chicago skyline. Jade had been working here for 8 months, and she knew every corner, every office, every hidden space. She knew which executives left their coffee cups on the desk and which ones actually threw their trash in the bin. She knew the smell of each floor, the leather and expensive cologne on the executive levels, the paper and ink in the accounting department, the coffee and stress everywhere else. Tonight felt different somehow. The air seemed heavier, charged with something Jade could not name. She checked her watch. 2:30 in the morning. Most of the building was empty now. Just security guards making their rounds, and a few workaholics burning the midnight oil. The forbidden. Flora Jade finished cleaning the 38th floor and headed toward the service elevator. But as she passed the private elevator, it's the one that only went to the top floor penthouse office, she noticed something strange. The door was slightly open. Just a crack like an invitation or a mistake. She should not care. She should just keep walking. The top floor was forbidden territory. It belonged to Cameron Blake, the young billionaire who had taken over Blake Industries after his father semi-retired. Jade had never seen him in person, though she had heard plenty of stories. They said he was brilliant but cold, ruthless in business but fair, handsome but unapproachable. Jade hesitated, her hand hovering near the elevator button. Curiosity was a dangerous thing, especially for someone like her who had learned to keep her head down and never ask questions. But something pulled at her, a force she could not explain. She stepped into the elevator. The panel had only one button: Penthouse. She pressed it. The elevator rose smoothly, carrying her higher and higher until the doors finally opened with a soft chime. Jade stepped out into another world, a different universe. The penthouse was nothing like the rest of the building. Floor-teasing windows offered a breathtaking view of Chicago at night, the city lights spreading out like stars fallen to earth. The furniture was sleek and modern, all clean lines and expensive materials. A fireplace burned softly in one corner, even though it was summer. The air smelled of sandalwood and something else, something masculine and intoxicating. Jade took a few careful steps, her heart pounding. She knew she should leave, but her feet kept moving forward. Drawn by the beauty of the space and the thrill of being somewhere she did not belong. That was when she saw him. He stood by the windows, hands in the pockets of his tailored black pants. His white dress shirt had the sleeves rolled up, showing strong forearms. His dark hair was slightly messy, as if he had run his fingers through it too many times. Even from behind, he radiated power and control. Jade froze, wanting to back away. But it was too late. Without turning around, he spoke. His voice was deep and smooth, like whiskey poured over ice. Do you always wander into places you should not be? Or is tonight special? The first words, Jade's mouth went dry. She gripped her cleaning cloth like it could protect her from whatever was about to happen. Sorry, Mr. Blake. I thought the floor was empty. I should not be here. He finally turned around, and when his eyes met hers, Jade felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Cameron Blake was devastatingly handsome. Not in a pretty boy way, but in a way that spoke of strength and danger. His jawline was sharp enough to cut glass. His eyes were a striking shade of green, like emeralds catching light. But it was not just his looks, it was the intensity. The way he looked at her, really looked at her as if she was not invisible at all. You are right, he said, taking a step closer. You should not be here. But I am glad you are. Jade frowned, confused. What? He smiled slightly, just the corner of his mouth lifting. You are the night janitor. Jade Monroe, right? I have seen you working. Her heart skipped. You know my name? I notice more than people think. He took another step toward her. I have watched you work for months. You clean like you are trying to erase something. Like you are searching for peace in repetition. His words hit too close to home. Jade felt exposed, seen in a way that both terrified and thrilled her. I should go, she whispered. You keep saying that, Cameron observed. But you are still standing here. He was right. Despite every logical reason to leave, Jade could not make herself move. There was something magnetic about him. Something that pulled at a part of her she had kept locked away for years. An unexpected connection. Cameron walked to a small bar in the corner and poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He held one out to her. Have a drink with me. I do not drink during work, Jade replied, trying to sound professional. Then you are not working anymore. He raised his glass. I rarely make offers twice. Jade knew she should refuse. Everything about this was wrong. But when she looked into those green eyes, she saw something unexpected. Loneliness. The same loneliness that lived inside her own chest. She took the glass, their fingers, brushed for just a second, but it felt like electricity racing up her arm. Jade quickly pulled her hand back and took a sip. The whiskey burned going down, but she did not look away from him. Why are you really here? Cameron asked quietly. At 2:30 in the morning, in a place you know you should not be. Jade considered lying, but something about him made her want to tell the truth. Because I wanted to see it. Just once. I wanted to see what it feels like to be in a place like this. To exist somewhere beautiful instead of just cleaning it. Cameron's expression softened. He set down his glass and stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Feel the warmth radiating from his body. You deserve more than cleaning up after others. Jade, you do not know anything about me, she whispered. Then tell me. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. Tell me everything. The first touch, Jade's breath caught. No one had touched her like this before. With tenderness, with genuine interest. She had spent her whole life being invisible, being nobody. And now this man, this powerful, wealthy, impossible man, was looking at her like she mattered. I grew up in an orphanage, she heard herself say. Riverside Children's Home in Indiana. I do not remember my parents. I do not remember much of anything from before I was 5. I just remember being alone. Always alone. Cameron's hand remained on her cheek, his thumb gently stroking her skin. You are not alone now, he said softly, and then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, questioning, as if asking permission. But when Jade responded, when she leaned into him and grabbed the front of his shirt, the kiss deepened. Years of loneliness, of being unseen, of pretending not to want or need anything. All came crashing down. Cameron's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against him. Jade's hands moved up to his shoulders, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. The kiss was everything. Fire and ice. Safety and danger. Home and the unknown. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cameron rested his forehead against hers. This is insane, Jade whispered. I know, he agreed. We should not do this. Probably not, but neither of them moved away. Instead, Cameron took her hand and led her deeper into the penthouse, toward a future neither could predict and a connection neither could deny. The invisible woman had finally been seen, and nothing would ever be the same again. Stolen moments the weeks following that first night became a beautiful secret. Jade continued her cleaning shifts, but now every moment carried the weight of anticipation. Would she see him? Would he appear in some quiet hallway, pulling her into an empty office for a stolen kiss? Cameron seemed to know her schedule better than she did. He would show up on the floors she was cleaning, always with some excuse. A forgotten file, a late meeting. But his eyes told the truth. He came for her. One night, Jade was organizing supplies in a storage room on the 25th floor when the door opened and closed quickly. She turned to find Cameron locking the door behind him. "You are going to get me fired," she said. But she was smiling. "Then I will hire you for something else." He crossed the small space in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "Doing what?" Jade laughed, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Being mine," he said simply, and kissed her until she forgot why this was supposed to be a bad idea. They stole moments everywhere. In the empty cafeteria at 3 in the morning, sharing coffee and stories from their different worlds. On the rooftop terrace, where Cameron held her close while they watched the sunrise over Chicago. In his penthouse, where they learned each other's bodies and hearts with equal intensity, Jade discovered that Cameron was nothing like the cold businessman people described. He was thoughtful and funny. He remembered every small detail she mentioned. He brought her favorite chocolate bars and left them in her locker. He listened when she talked about her dreams of maybe going to college someday, of becoming something more than a cleaning lady. The perfect illusion for a while. It felt like they existed in a bubble where the outside world could not touch them. Cameron never mentioned his family, and Jade never pushed. She knew he came from money and power, but when they were together, he was just Cameron, not the billionaire. Not the CEO, just a man who made her feel like the most important person in the world, but reality, as a way of breaking through even the strongest bubbles. It started with small things. The way security guards began watching Jade more carefully. Whispers that stopped when she walked by. A few of the other cleaning staff giving her strange looks. One night, as Jade was finishing her shift, her supervisor called her into the office. "Jade, I need to talk to you about something," Mrs. Patterson said. Her face serious. Jade's stomach dropped. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, your work is excellent as always." Mrs. Patterson hesitated. "But there have been some concerns raised about your behavior, about you being seen in areas you should not be in during your shift." Heat flooded Jade's cheeks. "I can explain. I do not want explanations." Mrs. Patterson's voice softened. "I am just saying, be careful. Not everyone here is your friend. And some people have powerful connections that you do not want working against you." The warning was clear. Someone was watching. Someone knew. The discovery that same night, Jade could not shake the feeling of unease. After her shift, instead of going home, she found herself wandering through the less used parts of the building. Maybe she was looking for Cameron. Maybe she just needed to walk. She ended up on the 40th floor, in a section that housed old records and archives. The door to one of the storage rooms was slightly open, and through the gap, Jade could see rows of filing cabinets. Something pulled her inside. She did not know what she was looking for until she saw it. A filing cabinet labeled Blake Foundation Archives, 1995 to 2010. Her hands trembled as she opened the drawer. Inside were folders, dozens of them, all marked with names of organizations and institutions. And there, near the back, she found it Riverside Children's Home, Confidential Records. Jade's heart pounded as she pulled out the folder. Inside were documents that made her blood run cold. Financial records showing massive donations from the Blake Foundation to Riverside. But these were not normal charity donations. They were payments, contracts, agreements. She kept reading, each page worse than the last. Behavioral Study Program. Phase 1. Subjects ages 4 to 8. Approved by Richard Blake, Chairman. Psychological Testing Initiative. Riverside Home Partnership. Funding secured for 5-year study. And then she found the list. Names and numbers. Children used as test subjects for some kind of experimental program. And there, halfway down the page, she saw her own name. Subject 47. Jade Monroe. Age 5. Status. Suitable. For extended observation, the folder slipped from her numb fingers and scattered across the floor. Pictures fell out. Children in white rooms. Children being tested. Children who looked scared and alone. Jade recognized the rooms. She remembered them now. The white walls. The people in lab coats asking questions. The fear. "Oh God," she whispered, pressing her hands to her mouth. The Blake family had not just donated to the orphanage. They had funded experiments. They had used children nobody would miss for research. They had used her. The confrontation, Jade did not know how long she sat there on the floor, surrounded by evidence of her stolen childhood. But eventually, she heard footsteps. Cameron appeared in the doorway. He was still in his work clothes, looking tired and worried. Jade, I heard you were still in the building. What are you doing up here? Then his eyes fell on the papers scattered around her. The folder with Riverside's name. The photographs. The color drained from his face. Let me explain. Explain what? Her voice came out harsh and broken. That your family used me? That I was nothing but a test subject? That everything I suffered was because someone with your last name decided orphans were good for experiments? I did not know. Cameron's voice cracked. I swear to you, Jade, I did not know about any of this. She stood up, papers clutched in her shaking hands. How could you not know? This is your family. Your foundation. Your name on every single document. My father, Cameron said desperately. This was all my father. I was just a kid when this was happening. He kept it hidden from me. He kept everything hidden. I cannot do this. Jade backed toward the door. I cannot be with you. Every time I look at you, I will see this. I will see what your family did to me. Cameron moved to block her path, but not threateningly, pleading. Please do not run. Please, Jade. I love you. The words that should have filled her with joy instead felt like knives. You cannot love me, she whispered. Not really. Because I am just another broken thing your family created. How can you love something your own blood destroyed? The choice for a long moment? They just stood there. Cameron's green eyes were wet with unshed tears. Jade had never seen him look so devastated, so human. I am going to make this right, he said finally. I am going to expose every single thing my father did. I am going to make sure this never happens to another child. And I am going to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I am not him. That we are not defined by the sins of our fathers. Cameron, if you do that, you will lose everything. Your company, your inheritance. Your family will destroy you. He stepped closer and gently touched her face, even though she flinched. I already lost everything the moment you looked at me like I was a monster. Nothing else matters. Not the money. Not the company. Not the Blake name. The only thing that matters is you believing that I love you. That this is real. That I would burn down my entire world if it meant keeping you safe. Jade wanted to pull away. Wanted to hate him. Wanted to run and never look back. But she could not. Because she knew he was telling the truth. She could see it in every line of his face. Feel it in the way his hand trembled against her cheek. I need time, she said finally. I need time to process this. To figure out who I am now that I know the truth. Cameron nodded, even though it clearly hurt. I will wait. However long it takes, I will be right here. Moving forward, the next few days were the hardest of Jade's life. She called in sick to work and stayed in her tiny apartment, reading and rereading the documents she had taken, learning the full truth of what had been done to her and dozens of other children. But she also noticed something. Cameron had not been lying about taking action. News broke that Cameron Blake was stepping down as CEO temporarily to cooperate with a federal investigation. Whistleblower documents had been submitted to authorities detailing illegal activities at the Blake Foundation. The business world exploded. Stock prices dropped. The Blake family name was being dragged through every news outlet. And at the center of it all was Cameron, choosing truth over comfort, choosing her over his legacy. On the fourth day, Jade opened her door to find Cameron standing there. He looked exhausted, like he had not slept in days. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. Did I wait long enough? He asked with a weak smile. Jade's heart cracked wide open. She launched herself into his arms, and he caught her, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. You are an idiot, she said against his chest. You are destroying your entire life for me. No, he corrected, pulling pulling back to look at her. I am building a real life. A honest one. With you, Jade cupped his face in her hands. Your father is going to come after us. Your family will never accept this. I do not care. Cameron's voice was fierce. Let them come. Let the whole world come. You are my family now. You are my home. And I protect what is mine. This time when they kissed, it was different. It was not just passion or desire. It was a promise. A choice made with open eyes and full hearts. They were choosing each other, choosing love over fear, choosing truth over comfortable lies, and somehow, wrapped in each other's arms in the doorway of a tiny apartment in a forgotten part of Chicago. They both knew they were going to be okay, not because the road ahead would be easy, but because they would walk it together. The storm begins, but Jade had underestimated Richard Blake's power and his fury. The very next evening, as she and Cameron were having dinner in her apartment, trying to plan their next steps, Jade's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something made her answer. Miss Monroe. The voice was cold, calculated, and unmistakably powerful. This is Richard Blake. I think it is time we had a conversation about your relationship with my son. Jade's hand tightened on the phone. Cameron saw her expression and immediately came to her side. I have nothing to say to you, Jade replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Then listen, Richard said. You are a smart girl. Smart enough to know that you do not belong in my son's world. Smart enough to understand that this little romance will destroy him, his reputation, his future. Everything I built for him. Everything you built on the backs of children, Jade shot back, a cold laugh. Those programs helped advance important research. Children who had nothing contributed to something greater. You should be grateful. Jade's hand shook with rage. Grateful? You experimented on us? You treated us like we were not even human. And look at you now, Richard continued smoothly. A cleaning lady, threatening my empire. How far you have come. But let me make something very clear. If you do not walk away from my son, I will make sure you lose everything. Your job, your home, any hope of a future. I will bury you so deep, no one will remember you existed. Cameron grabbed the phone from her hand. Father, if you threaten her again, I will release every single document to the press, every email, every record. I will make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. You would destroy your own father. Richard's voice was ice. To protect her? Yes, without hesitation. The line went dead. Cameron pulled Jade close. But they both knew the real battle was just beginning. The war begins. Richard Blake moved fast. Within 24 hours of that phone call, Jade found herself unemployed. Blake Industries terminated her contract, citing policy violations. Her landlord suddenly decided to sell the building, giving all tenants 30 days to leave. And when she tried to apply for new jobs, she found herself mysteriously rejected everywhere. Richard Blake was making good on his threat. He was erasing her. But he had underestimated two things. First, Jade's survival instincts, honed by years of having nothing and no one. And second, Cameron's absolute refusal to back down. Move in with me, Cameron said as they sat in his penthouse. Surrounded by legal documents and strategy papers, Cameron, that is exactly what your father wants. More ammunition to use against us. I do not care what he wants. Cameron took her hands. You are not facing this alone. We face it together, or not at all. Jade looked at this man who had turned his entire world upside down for her. This man who chose truth over comfort, love over legacy. Okay, she finally said. Together. The public battle, the story broke nationwide 1 week later. Major newspapers ran front-page articles about the Blake Foundation's illegal experimentation program. Survivors from Riverside Children's Home came forward with their own stories. Federal investigators raided Blake Foundation offices, and at the center of it all was Cameron Blake, the whistleblower who exposed his own family's crimes. The media frenzy was intense. Reporters camped outside Cameron's building. His phone rang constantly with interview requests. Business partners pulled their investments. Board members called for his removal. But something else happened too. People began reaching out to support him. Advocacy groups for foster children, ethics lawyers offering pro bono help, even other wealthy families who had been pressured by Richard Blake over the years started coming forward with their own stories. Jade watched Cameron handle it all with grace and determination. He gave interviews where he spoke honestly about his family's wrongs and his commitment to making things right. He set up a victims fund using his personal money. He worked with lawmakers to create stronger protections for children in the system. He was becoming the man he always wanted to be, not the man his father demanded. Family confrontation. The final confrontation came on a cold December evening. Richard Blake demanded a meeting at the Blake family estate. Cameron wanted to go alone, but Jade refused. "We face him together," she said, echoing his own words back to him. The estate was everything Jade expected. Massive, cold, beautiful, but lifeless. Like a museum dedicated to money and power, Richard Blake waited for them in his office. He looked older than Jade had imagined, tired, but his eyes were still sharp and calculating. "So you are the girl who destroyed my family," he said to Jade. No, Cameron stepped forward. "You destroyed this family long before I met her. You destroyed it the moment you decided children were acceptable test subjects. The moment you chose profit over humanity." Richard's jaw tightened. "I did what was necessary to build this empire. To give you every advantage?" I did not want advantages built on suffering," Cameron replied. "I wanted a father who taught me right from wrong. Instead, I got a man who taught me how to hide crimes." "You ungrateful fool." Richard's composure finally cracked. "I gave you everything, and you threw it away for some orphan who is not even fit to clean your floors." Jade stepped forward before Cameron could respond. "You are right about one thing, Mr. Blake. I did clean floors. Because after what you did to me and the other kids at Riverside, I had nothing. No education, no family, no support. You stole my childhood and then abandoned me to figure out life alone." She moved closer, her voice steady and strong. "But I survived. I worked. I fought. And I built a life from nothing. While you were hiding behind money and power, I was learning what real strength looks like. So yes, I cleaned floors. And I am proud of it. Because I earned every single thing I have through honest work. Can you say the same?" The choice Richard stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his son. "If you walk out that door with her, you are no longer my son. You will get nothing. Not a dollar. Not the company. Nothing." Cameron did not hesitate. He took Jade's hand. "I stopped being your son the day I learned the truth. And I do not want anything that came from blood money." He led Jade toward the door, but paused at the threshold. "I hope one day you understand what you lost, Father. It was not money or power. It was the chance to be a good man. And that is something no amount of wealth can buy." They walked out together into the cold December night. Jade expected to feel scared or uncertain. Instead, she felt free. New beginnings. 6 months later, Jade stood in the small office of Manro Blake Advocacy, a nonprofit organization she and Cameron founded to support foster children and survivors of institutional abuse. It was not fancy, nothing like the Blake Industries Tower, but it was theirs. Built with Cameron's personal savings and Jade's determination, every person they employed was someone who understood the foster system firsthand. Cameron appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Ready for the board meeting?" he asked, smiling. Jade looked at him, really looked at him. He wore jeans and a simple button-down shirt now instead of expensive suits. There were stress lines around his eyes from long hours of work, but he looked happier than she had ever seen him. "I am ready for anything," she replied, "as long as you are next to me." He crossed the room and pulled her close. "Always, that is the deal, remember? We face everything together." Together, she agreed and kissed him. The legal battles with Richard Blake were ongoing. The federal investigation would take years. They had lost the Blake fortune, but gained something infinitely more valuable. They had each other. They had purpose. They had truth. The proposal on their one-year anniversary of that first meeting in the penthouse, Cameron took Jade back to Blake Industries Tower. The building had new owners now, but Cameron had arranged special permission to access the penthouse one last time. They stood by the windows, where they had first spoken. Looking out at Chicago at night, "Do you remember what you said to me that first night?" Cameron asked, holding her hand. "I said a lot of things. You said you wanted to see what it felt like to exist somewhere beautiful instead of just cleaning it." He turned to face her. "And I remember thinking that you were the most beautiful thing in that room, that you made everything else pale in comparison." Jade felt tears starting. "Cameron," he got down on one knee, pulling out a simple ring. Not a massive diamond. Just a beautiful, elegant band. "Jade Monroe, you broke down every wall I built around my heart. You made me see the truth, even when it was painful. You taught me what real strength looks like. Would you do me the honor of being my wife?" Jade did not hesitate. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that held all their history, all their pain, all their hope, all their love. Full circle 1 year after that, on their wedding day.
Ow.
Jade stood in a simple white dress in a small community center. No fancy venue. No society guests. Just the people who mattered. The staff from their nonprofit, former foster kids they had helped, friends who stood by them through everything, and Cameron, looking at her like she was his entire world. As they exchanged vows, Jade thought about the journey that brought them here. From the invisible cleaning lady to the woman standing in front of everyone, claiming her place in the world. She thought about the little girl at Riverside, who felt like nobody, who survived experiments and neglect, who learned to be invisible to protect herself. That little girl would have never believed this moment was possible. "I promise to see you," Cameron said in his vows, his voice thick with emotion. "Every day, every moment, to honor your strength, to protect your heart, to build a life with you based on truth and love." "I promise to let you," Jade replied, tears streaming down her face. "To tear down my walls? To trust. To believe that I deserve happiness, to build this life with you, moment by moment, day by day." When they kissed as husband and wife, everyone cheered, but Jade barely heard them. She was too focused on the man holding her, the man who saw her when she was invisible, the man who chose her over everything. Epilogue, 5 years. Later, the Monroe Blake Advocacy Center had grown into a network of facilities across 3 states. They had helped hundreds of foster children, lobbied for new protection laws, brought justice to other institutions running unethical programs. Richard Blake, serving a 15-year sentence for his crimes. The Blake Foundation had been dissolved, its remaining assets used to compensate victims. Jade sat in her office, looking at pictures on her desk. Her and Cameron on their wedding day, the staff at their first advocacy center, in the newest edition, a photo from the adoption ceremony. 3 months ago, they had adopted twin girls from the foster system, Emma and Grace, age 6. Girls who reminded Jade so much of herself at that age, scared, invisible, convinced nobody would ever choose them. Cameron appeared in the doorway, holding both girls' hands, ready to go home. He asked. Emma ran to Jade. "Can we have movie night?" "You promised." "Of course we can," Jade said, scooping her up. "What do you want to watch?" "Something with a happy ending," Grace said quietly. She was still adjusting, still learning that this home was permanent. Jade met Cameron's eyes over the girls' heads. They shared a smile full of understanding and love. "Happy endings are my favorite," Jade said, "because they are not really endings at all. They are new beginnings." As they walked out together, a family built from broken pieces, Jade realized something. She had spent so many years trying to hide her past, believing it made her unworthy of love. But her past was not something to hide. It was proof of her strength, evidence of her survival, the foundation of her purpose. And Cameron had not broken down her walls to change her. He had broken them down so she could finally be free, free to love, free to trust, free to believe she deserved every good thing. The invisible woman had become visible. The broken girl had become whole. The orphan had become a mother. And the night cleaner, who once pushed a cart through empty hallways, now walked through life hand in hand with the man who saw her when no one else did. Together. They had built something beautiful from the ruins of their pasts. Together. They had found home, and that was the greatest love story of all.